right, everybody, we're back in the second segment. All right, here what we're going to do is I'm going to do some college bowl stuff, and then we will get into some questions that you guys got to me during the week. We have those ready for you guys. Now, let's kick it off with when I talk about the bowl stuff here. There's the competitions most of the time, fantasy-wise, and what people do in these pools is you pick the games, all of them, at one shot, and you weight them compared to 1 through 34. So the stronger you feel about a game, the higher the number you're going to give it. Obviously, the one-pointer means you're not too sure about it. So you have to rank them like that and do them all in one shot. Now, this is a simple strategy I do when you have to pick them all at one shot. Okay? Basically, before you put the weight on them, make all the picks on who you think is going to win. Do that you should have done it already, but let's say you did it today. Go through and make all the picks. Don't put any weight on them yet. Then before the first game, which is Saturday, Friday night, okay, or early Saturday morning if you can, now make the picks again, win-loss. And in the meantime, do research, do where the games are, find out who's moving, going from east to the west or west to the east, and the time zones and all that kind of stuff, and numbers and stats, and do things like that. And then come Saturday or like Friday night, like I said, make the picks again. Compare the two, and where you have the same, okay, you're good. The ones that you don't have the same in those two times, move them down on your list of 1 through 34 strength-wise. So you're going to lower rank the games that you're not too sure about. Now, after that step, another thing to work it out before you make your final pick. Go through each team and see if you can name the quarterback and the head coach. And if you go to both teams in the game, and you can't name any of those four, okay, that game's got to be ranked lower. I mean, you don't know much about the teams. Okay, so don't think you know. Don't go based on headlines or names that look familiar or their past or anything like that. Go on what you know about the teams. The more you know about a game, the higher level it should be on your power list, to put it that way. I know it's dangerous because, let's say, the championship game, Oklahoma versus Florida, could go either way, right? But you know the quarterbacks for both those teams. You know the coaches for both those teams. You know a lot about those games. So that's got to automatically be ahead of games like Memphis versus South Carolina. Because that's more, if you don't know anything about the game, you got a 50-50 shot. If you can make a valued opinion, or if you can make a risk-reward weight in your head based on what you know, then you should put more weight on those games because you can make a more educated guess, I guess, in a way, if you're saying anything. And it's 50-50. Now, if you're really unsure, go to the point spreads and look at who's the favorites and look at how much they're a favorite of. And, weight based on that. I know people who basically just go with all the favorites and start with the highest point spread and on down. Okay? That's another way of going about it. But the thing about when you're picking them all at one time, you have no shot to find out more information at a later date. You have to do this now. You don't know what can happen in the Alabama game. It's so far away, but somebody could get hurt or something can happen. There's nothing you can do about that. But you shouldn't be making a pick based on one player, or one thing you know about the game. If that guy's gone, then you don't know what to do. If it's a higher weighted game, you should know as much as possible. And basically weight the games based on how much you know about each game versus what you think you know. Don't weigh it because this one just looks like a lock. There's no way Georgia Tech loses just because I know that, because I've heard people talk about that, and then weight it high and you know nothing about the game. Don't do that. Do it based on how much you know and rank it from how much you know to the least you know about a game. Now you may know a lot about a game but still can't make a decision. Then you got to rank that lower. But start there and then weigh it down, and then now you have pretty much your rough draft of your choices and your weighted per game, and then from there look it over and put them, like, I guess, into segments. Like, okay, yeah, this one I definitely feel good about. It's in the right spot. And move some other ones that you're not too sure about, or and work it from there. And that's where you'll have your final copy. Because if you try too hard to be smart and outsmart the stats and outsmart the numbers and outsmart the trends, the more likely you're going to screw up. Okay, so that's how I handle these weighted bowl contests. Even, on a smaller scale, the NFL, when the contests that do the weighted picks as well, throughout the year on a weekly basis, that's what I do. So that's the strategy I implore you. I implore you, and I apply to use when it comes to these contests. Because it's such a unique thing, the bowl thing. There's no real home fields, but there are some in some cases, so you got to find those. You got to find just think teams that don't belong in there, but they're in there just because they have a good TV draw, Notre Dame, that kind of thing. You've got to look for these things, and like I said, weigh them based on how much you know about each game. Now, if you know nothing, like I said, use the spreads, the favorite spreads strategy. Okay, so those are the different strategies I go with when it comes to picking bowls. Obviously, I have a more than an average knowledge of each of these games, so I use a more advanced strategy. But if there are simple strategies, and there's nothing to be afraid of, and I'll go over this theme in the final segment of when you're picking, games or players for these important times. Sometimes you're just drawing a blank on a game, or sometimes you just can't make a choice. I mean, that is why I get a lot of these questions from you guys, because you just can't. You need someone else to be your tiebreaker in your head. But it's okay to do that once in a while. If you're doing that all the time, then you got to question whether you know what you're doing. But it's okay to lean on others. It's okay to just be, at a loss for TCU, Boise State. There's no harm in saying I can't figure this game out for the life of me. Start now looking at your resources. Start looking at your network of people that you give credibility to and can give you some positive information. Remember, don't go to somebody who's got an agenda, who's trying to push a certain team, or push, or has something at stake with telling you what they think. It's okay when it comes to these picks in fantasy and in bowl games and its point spread to rely on other people's information, and that is really the gist of what I do. I basically go out there, get all the information, and I process it for you guys. And that's why those of you who do rely on me or come to me for stuff know it comes from a credible source. I have no, if there's a situation where I'll tell you straight out, I'm just such a Jet fan. Looking for the Jets Seattle this weekend. In all honesty, if I wasn't a Jet fan, I'd probably be picking Seattle in a lot of situations because it just looked like the Jets are in trouble. But if you ask me specifically about that game, I'm going to tell you straight out. I got more of a biased outlook on it. But this is what I think. There's two sides of me. I'm the fan, and then what I'm telling you as someone you're giving authority to. And if you're giving me authority to help you guys out with something, I'm going to go with what information's out there and just tell you what to say, the way to go should be. And then from that point on, you go in the direction you want. So that's the fantasy. That's the football, college football bowl stuff. Now, if you're not doing a whole pick'em from the beginning and you're basically just going through, you get to pick them because you're doing a contest where you just pick each game as they go. Like wagerline.com does that. Crowdpicks.com does that. Where you go and you make the picks as they go. This is a different strategy then. Then don't make those picks until game time, because then you make sure you know all the information you need, and then go with the spreads based on your opinion. And a lot of the times, I don't know if this is verified, I know this is in the NFL playoffs, a lot of times in the playoffs, the winning team covers 75% of the time in the NFL playoffs. I'm sure in college and bowls, it is almost the same kind of, I'm pretty sure it's going to be the same scenario. Pick more the winners rather than the spreads, because those teams normally tend to cover. The underdogs, they don't just cover and lose a lot of times. Okay, if an underdog wins, they normally, if the underdog covers the spread, it's because they won the game. And the winners don't win tight games. They normally cover the spreads. That's the NFL playoffs, and I'm assuming if someone does a study on the college bowls, you'll find probably the same thing. But I do tend to look first at who I think is going to win and then worry about the spread second. And that's